everybody, you're going to want to pull out your surfboard because there are a lot of tidal waves of dramatic energy coming our way. Very early in the week, we've got the Leo full moon. We have Uranus stationed direct throughout this. And we got the hero's journey continuing with the first chapter ending, the second chapter coming in. Oh boy, we have a lot to talk about. Welcome to all you new folks here. It's a pleasure having you in our surf tribe. And here we have our energies for this week. We have the Dream Bot, the collective unconscious. It says it's very special opsy, very military, and like a military response. And that speaks to our Pluto and Aquarius right off the get-go. And it speaks to the Sun contra-parallel Uranus, and at the end of the week we're going to have a Sun square Uranus. We'll talk about all this and what it means. And the I-Ching says it's just a lot of uncertainty, and everything I'm mentioning speaks to that. It's just the massive drama of uncertainty. The drama part is the Leo. That's the start of our surf week, but Uranus is going to play a big part in this. We're going to have, for the majority of the week, the waxing gibbous moon. This is for the last days of January 2024, and it's going to be a big one, energetically. All right, let's do this. And our big shout out goes to No One You Know for winning the best comment this week. Congratulations. And lots of great comments. Again, thank you. And welcome again to those new folks. We're excited to have you here. All right, Dreambot. Why is this important? Because we need to know what the collective unconscious is thinking. It's been fairly positive the last few months, and now it's really starting to tank. And the mainstream media really just always pumps out pessimism and negativity. Well, now we're starting to see it bubble out in the collective unconscious. Number one, the top part of this corpse core, like Marine Corps soldiers survey colossal destruction. That's all Pluto. That's Pluto and Aquarius, right? The hero's journey. And then linguistic set number 2, jumps global tail. There's a lot of global in this, and that speaks to the Aquarian influence here. So very Aquarian, very military, very special ops. And what does that have to do with anything? Well, a lot of uncertainty. That's a perfect match to the I-Ching, to the full moon. It's a perfect match, just uncertainty, and a lot of Aquarian starting to build. But Earth, as you're going to see, is very dominant this week still, and this is several weeks in the making. Kind of probably one of our last weeks with the big heavy earthy energy. As soon as Mars and Mercury head out of Capricorn, that Earth dominance is going to be over. We're going to be into the mental sphere of Aquarius, but that's not this week. Now, the big picture, and by the way, speaking to this slide here, this energy, the phasing, I'm big into cycles. So we have an eclipse cycle here. It's ruled by Venus. It's a Libra eclipse cycle for this 6 months. And we're currently in a Leo full moon this surf week, which will serve the Capricorn lunar phase, the 30-day phase. And all of that, the Capricorn, will serve the bringing about more peace, more harmony, the bigger eclipse cycle. And we're on the back end of this eclipse cycle. The next one starts April 8th. And the reason why this is important is because if you hang out at the end of this surf recording, I'm going to include a new concept, a new idea for an added video. I plan on doing each week. We're still going to have the surf reports, and I'm still planning on putting those out on Wednesdays. But this new report is about looking a little bit further ahead and seeing the big energetic changes that will affect the bigger cycle. All right. And then this week, now let's get into this energy. And there's three big ones. We got the red is the full moon. That's right off the get-go, and that starts to wane Friday-ish. And then we've got, well, what's supposed to be green, but it presents as blue, is the Earth, and Earth changes. It's Earth dominance. This height here on Saturday is Mars and Mercury conjunct and parallel. So it's a mega together. It's a mega conjunction, and it's Earth, and it's trine over to Uranus. So big Earth changes. And then we have the hero's journey. We have the sun in Aquarius in a detriment, so weakened ego, and having to face all these deeper changes and overhauls, Pluto. And then this week is going to be this ramping up right here is chapter 2 of Ego's Humbling, as we have some special things between Sun and Uranus. So we'll talk about all that. The big news here on the big I don't know, the month schedule of alignments is Uranus stationing in direct. So we have Pluto in Aquarius, obviously we talked about that last week, and then we have Uranus halfway through for 2 days, actually through almost 3 days of station, slowing down, station, and then going direct. So we'll have all planets direct by the end of this week. We have the full moon there, and then you can see 29, all these green horizontal lines, these are trines, and they create a really beautiful grand Earth trine that we're going to experience halfway through. But first things first, we have Thursday the 25th, and this is going to be a really interesting, dramatic energy that I don't even quite know how it's going to manifest for me, because it's my sun is, or the transit sun is right over my natal sun at about 5 degrees, and which makes for a solar return correlated directly with this full moon for me. So early Aquarians in particular, I think, are going to be feeling the big effects of obviously the Pluto, but this drama that gets installed and affects everybody, maybe starting to act like kids. I think for the early Leos, this is going to definitely be the case, acting extremely unpredictably and wanting to be seen and needy potentially. But for the Aquarians, I don't know. We might see that energy being cast out on the Leo full moon and then reflected back to us. I'm not going to make any premonitions about what I'm going to feel. I'm going to stay in the present moment and then see how that ends up feeling, because I am an early Aquarian. But I can also expect that the other option might manifest, which is a very reclusive sort of a feeling, depending on how we reacted to this early hero's journey when the sun passed over Pluto and they both entered into Aquarius together. And depending on how that hero's journey went might determine how this cloak kind of a feel for Aquarians and receding into the background and not wanting to be seen and thinking they're invisible, all that kind of stuff, that might be really strong here, especially if we start seeing the rest of humanity acting like crazies. Don't worry, I'm not calling Leos crazy, but I think this is a crazy energy. It's a full moon, so typically we think about finishing your lunar goals for the month. This is the Capricorn is the most recent new moon, and so you should have had some Capricorn goals. And you know, especially with this energy, it might be hard to keep going towards those goals. So maybe get those done beforehand. It's probably kind of too late, but it's also a celebratory kind of a period with full moon, especially a Leo kind of thing. We have Now, on the flip side of it, I want to talk about the Earth aspect here is massive Earth trine energy. You can see this massive easy energy between Uranus and Jupiter and our players over here in Capricorn, Venus, Mercury, Mars. So tons of energy in Earth signs. So 5 and fixed is 5. So fixed Earth is Taurus. And that's actually pretty important because when we start talking about February, we're going to, and more of these planets get into Aquarius, we're going to see these fixed signs go into like 8, like all of the planets are in fixed signs. That'll be mid February. And that speaks to the video I'm going to show you at the end of this is my concept for what I'm talking about is looking ahead energetically and see where the big shifts are. All right, let's get back to Thursday, the 25th. Attention all early Aquarians and attention all early Leos. This is just going to be a massive energy. Something to keep in mind is Jupiter is in a T-square, and this could mean like a pressure to be positive and have a positive outlook and have no fear. And, that's already a Leo energy. But if it's energetically difficult to find the positivity, we might compensate for that. So seeking a lot of positivity. And I think it's going to be more of an aspect to the already humbled ego in Aquarius, the sun square Jupiter. And so for that little ego that's humbled, it's going to be hard to find that positivity. Some people could be trapped there. So be aware of that. And when they're trapped in trying to find positivity and can't, that could be a big problem. This could be like behaviorally, you're going to see them act like they're a dog in the corner, trapped in the corner, and they can become vicious when that is their perception. So be aware of that. Now, this is the full moon, and when the dust settles, it's going to be big Leo, dramatic energy, and most of it uncertain. So when that dust settles, there's 2 main energies that emerge. Number 1, you have the robust earthy energy that we just talked about, and it's only getting stronger for 2 reasons. Number 1, Mercury and Mars are becoming parallel, meaning their inclination is the same, meaning that this intensity that is already intense because they're both at 16 degrees Capricorn is exponentially higher. The intensity is much higher than just them being conjunct. And then that trine over to Uranus, and guess what? He is slowing down. It's not quite full up station. Station means that he's apparent to Earth, has stopped its motion completely. That'll be soon, but right now he's starting to slow down. So we have intensity in Capricorn, big intensity. And this is like climbing the corporate ladder. It's this conjunction, this Mars and Mercury is like scrambling up the ranks like a businessman, scaling the tall towers of bureaucracy. So we're going to be with this energy, with this conjunction, because it's both the inclination parallel and the conjunction is like throwing yourself into work projects with renewed motivation, having laser focus and productivity. Remember, this is post full moon. So according to that, it's the waning gibbous phase. So lunar aspect is sort of kind of winding down, and this is ramping up. So that's sort of uncertain. So you're motivated. When you're starting to slow down, you're going to probably feel like speeding up. As far as our solution, like what do I do about that? We're going to talk about the solution later. Okay. So I'm not leaving you hanging here, but we have a whole separate module just for the behaviors and what you can, how to best behave to maximize your success this week. And then, so we have that one, the robust earthy energy. And then we have two, which is the sun and Pluto is the ego is in transition. So you can see that the conjunction with Pluto is waning out. The square to Jupiter is strengthening and climaxing. And then at the end of our CIRF week, the end of the last day of January 2024, Sun will start a square with direct Uranus. So a lot of squares for the Sun, but that's only half the story, as you'll see next. So basically, the shock phase of the ego's hero's journey is waning out and transitioning out, but that's not the end of the hero's journey. Unfortunately, there's more. So now we're in a perfect conjunction, Mercury and Mars at 8:58 a.m. Central Standard Time. We have Mercury and Mars perfectly exact and parallel. And so we're taking on new additional responsibilities. We're concentrating more intently on improving our practical skills. We want to become an authority or get more credentials or plan that out about reputation, and especially in your field of work. And then, so remember those two parallel energies, big energies. You've got that Capricorn energy that we just mentioned, and then you've got the hero's journey, shock phase almost complete. We have 7 degrees of orb, so almost out of chapter 1, but it continues. So hero's journey on Sunday the 28th begins with the second chapter, and this is because Sun is contraparallel with Uranus. And what that means is these two entities are conflicted. So we have a weakened Sun. Now Uranus is not quite in a square yet, which will be soon, but is in a conflicted inclination with our Sun in detriment in Aquarius. So Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, is conflicted back home. Energetically, it's the furthest away that the energy has the most difficulty getting his energy back to Aquarius or home. And so what that means is there's some strife expected. There's some, Uranus is already a rebellious one, but now we've got even more rebelliousness, a feeling, a sense. If you can put yourself into a freedom fighter who's feeling never freer and more trapped and more confined and having to conform and all this stuff. And so his perception, the Uranus perception, is all you can see is how much enslaved he is and wants to fight out of it. So that's going to be really interesting, especially for our early Aquarians, early to mid Aquarians. And then we have Earth 6 and fixed 4. So Earth fixed is still the backdrop of Taurus, and that matches our grand Earth trine. This is day 1. Oh, by the way, this day, Sunday the 28th at 7:02 p.m. Central Time, Venus trine Jupiter. So excessive, very optimistic, value-driven wealth concepts, money and finance are high attention for Venus and Jupiter, and looking for wisdom in our practical relationships. But now we get into Monday the 29th. This is our first full day. What I forgot to mention was Uranus was station, and that just adds to this contraparallel, because Uranus is one of those far out slow planets, so very much down into the subconscious, But now, not so much. Those energies are bubbling out into the conscious awareness. We might be missing insights because that's a big like technological innovation. And there's a pressure to do it. This, by the way, when this squares up, well, disregard that. I will cover that later. But right now, because we have this contraparallel, it's hard to change. I might begrudgingly finding myself in conformity. All right. So now we have Uranus is in the first full day of direct. We have all planets in direct mode. And so things proceed forward as they should be. But we don't know how they should be because there's so much uncertainty for all the reasons that I mentioned before. And this is our second day of a grand Earth trine. One of the corners is the moon, so it doesn't last very long. Maybe a day when it all said and done, maybe about 24 hours, maybe up to 30 hours. And that'll make things at least feel grounded. The most grounded all week will be Sunday and Monday because of that grand Earth trine. But that still doesn't guarantee certainty because Uranus is stationed most of that time. And so lots of energy of change. And whenever you have change, you have this unsettled feeling, like uncertainty. People have more anxiety and start controlling more because they feel out of control. Not everybody, but some people do. All right, and we have Sun still contraparallel with now a direct Uranus. And we have Sun at 10 degrees, Uranus at 19 degrees. So we're getting real close to the start of our square. That'll happen on Wednesday, the last day of January. But these together, this seamless transition of Sun and Uranus, starting with a contraparallel and extra conflict, is going to turn into a square. And so it's additive. So not these two different directions of alignments are additive. So you've got a square as a conflicted energy. Energy has a hard time going between those two planets. And the same thing with Uranus, contraparallel. So it's extra conflicted, and now that's what Hero's Journey Chapter 2 is. So a little more humbling. And we have the waning gibbous moon heading into Libra, our last day, 31st of January, last day of the CIRF week, Sun square Uranus begins. And this really is like paddling up against the current. And so if you can imagine this current moving against him or she, I can't tell, moving and paddling up against the current. That's what this picture is. This image of this energy, Uranus square Sun and Sun contraparallel Uranus, is paddling against the current. And this might be while everyone else is just floating downstream. We're saying, screw that. I'm going to get out of this conformity, questioning traditional definitions of individuality, desiring to break free from typical expectations, and radical individualism. It's one of the big things with both Aquarius and Uranus. And above all, avoiding conformity. Right? All right. So now let's get into the I-Ching reading, which had change line 3. And when we put all that together, it's basically this hexagram associated with turning of darkness back towards the light. So it's still in that doldrum of unknowns, but it's moving towards it'll start making sense. This is the cusp of the turnaround, a time of new beginnings. This hexagram suggests a time of uncertainty where people might be experiencing a sense of anticipation, restlessness, and unease due to the impending change. They might feel like they are at a turning point in their lives where important decisions or shifts are imminent. Do you see what the focus is with this I-Ching? I think it's trying to point to not just that full moon at the start, but this huge centerpiece of Uranus, Sun and Uranus in conjunct, etc. So it might feel like restlessness or anticipation due to the uncertainty of the impending change and the need for flexibility and adaptability in navigating the transitional phase. So with that, let's close out the influence. I'll put the right slide here, zoom in, and here's our picture for the overall week. It's just all these signs telling you different things, and nope, now you got to turn right, nope, turn left. And you're like, I don't know. 3 big influences charge up this week. We start off with a dramatic, attention-seeking full moon in Leo. Roar. Unpredictability rises while everyone is temporarily acting like pushy little disruptive kids. And when the dust settles, the 2 emerging influences from last week battle it out again. Number 1, a pessimistic emperor has no clothes. We're talking about the Sun and Pluto. The pessimistic emperor has no clothes. Hero's journey, or just feeling egoically vulnerable, versus easily consumed by tasks and finding new value in a quickly changing world. It's all about that grand Earth trine. And in that trine, remember, Uranus is stationed and direct. All right. Are we ready to cover the solution now? Hang with us. There's more. How are you supposed to behave in all this unpredictability? Well, when you put the change line in, we get hexagram 36. So it says, let your thoughts and efforts be quiet, self-contained, and protected as much as possible from harmful influences. And this matches the waning gibbous. Don't underestimate the power of the waning gibbous, especially after the full moon, after about 24 hours. So like by Friday night into the weekend, pay attention to that waning gibbous, which is starting to become more reserved. Don't let yourself be swept along on the current of conventional wisdom. Try not to become too depressed or anxious. Just endure it for now. Now is the time to be cautious and reserved. Control yourself. So here's some direct suggestions. 1 is embrace humility. Preserve inner clarity. And this was going to take a little more time because your insight planet himself, Uranus, is conflicted with the ego, but at least he's trying to Mercury and Mars. Seek guidance. Cultivate patience and perseverance. All right, so that was the I-Ching. Then we put our full moon into our biggest dominant energy this week is the full moon. And we put that into our converter chart. So we can get hexagram 31 of the Rave Mandala, and we get Sidereal Cancer. And we start with 31 of the Rave, the law of friction, whether active or passive, that engenders transference and thus influence. What does that mean? It's just a hexagram of influence. Line 4 is the intent, though, the success of influence based on how it is perceived. So it doesn't matter what you're trying to put out. It's more importantly is what do they think you're trying to put out? Public acknowledgement of a nurturing and protective influence. External positive recognition of one's capacity to lead. Now, there's a lot of mumbo jumbo there. What does all this mean? It means that we don't just go out and protect people and lead. We go out, protect people, and lead the people who have positive regards for your leading. So don't try to lead people who don't want to be led. That's what it's saying. you'll run into problems. All right, let's triangulate for the solution. So the rave that we just read was basically the people being led. It's important to know how they perceive you leading, and don't lead if they detect. If it looks like they think that you're trying to control them, I would not continue leading in that case. The I-Ching says darkening of the light, but it's just about behaviorally. It's not meaning we're entering dark times. That would be more of an influence. The I-Ching 36 in terms of behaviors is more of start thinking about dimming your light. This is after the full moon, and it's going to be in that waning gibbous phase. At the full moon, though, because again, we're looking at the beginning of the week versus towards the end of the week. The beginning is the full moon, so it's celebration, completing the biggest goals before then, and really having fun, connecting with people. That's your typical full moon. And sidereal Cancer is about protecting and nurturing. Maybe behaviorally is more of staying at home. So let's put all this together. In our search for behavioral suggestions and overlaps, there are two basic themes to work with: the lunar shift, i.e. the moon status, and the idea of protection. That's a common theme here, especially with the rave and the sidereal Cancer. The full moon is a time of completing your tasks or celebrating, and it defines the time where you start considering winding down behaviorally in the waning gibbous period. So as we get further along into this CIRF week, should probably just consider doing less, but that might be hard when you've got Mercury and Mars in a conjunction in parallel saying go, 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 and climb the ladder. So behaviorally, keep that in mind. If you still have that urge to climb the ladder and keep working on your reputation, I would not, especially in the waning gibbous phase, I would caution against signing up for more than you can do. That's the energy. It's signing up. Like Mercury and Mars together in Capricorn. It's like, oh yeah, and I can do this, and I can make promises here and there, and I can design out my routine. But it's based on this extra energy that you have, mental and yang energy of being able to get stuff done and climb the corporate structure. And then when that energy is done, it's like, oh crap, what did I sign up for? I don't know if I can do this. So be aware of that. Now, the winding down because of the waning gibbous period, this matches the I-Ching 36. Cultivate patience, reflect and reassess, and embrace humility, sensitivity, which then overlaps with sidereal Cancer. Basically, the biggest suggestion for sidereal Cancer is act like you care. Protect your home, protect the people around you, protect yourself. After the full moon, then consider spending more time in familiar places. It's a place and location zodiac sign. Home doesn't have to be your house. It can be just places that you're familiar with. And for the rave, watch out for overprotecting. It specifically talked about the downside of, even though the people aren't responding like they like your leadership, you keep on leading, and that's overprotecting. It takes more than just thinking positively about your own leadership. You need to find public acknowledgement of it, or your protection is actually something harmful, which is more controlling. Just like the influence, there was a lot in the influence, a lot of confusion and uncertainty. This should hopefully start sectioning off what is acceptable behavior and what's too much. Caution about what's too much, and doing less. If you can just think about one thing this week, which is, as the days wear on this CIRF week, doing less and less. So the darkening of the light, not completely. We're not just put out the candle and go to sleep. So, keep moving forward, but start slowing down. Okay. All right. Now let's get into the runes. We have the Gebu. That's for the Libra eclipse cycle. That's to attract more generosity and diplomacy. But I am thinking that Elgaz or Elgiz or Elhaz has two names. It looks like this, a broom, upside down broom. It's basically no fear. This is for protection, both perceived and otherwise, and real threats, because the Cancer, sidereal Cancer says protect, protect, protect. Put your hard shell up, do less, go home, spend some time alone, or spend time with just very close people and friendships, but protect them as well. Protect your place, but don't live in fear. Okay? Love is the only defense I need. That's the phrase that I'm going to combine Elhaz with. So I'm not going to live in fear. I'm going to attract protection of my person, but knowing mentally and reaffirming it to myself is important. Love is the only defense I need. All right. So that's the end of the CIRF report. I want to show you what my new project is. So let's close that out. Hang on here. Here we go. See what you think. I don't know if you can read that. Energy wise by knowing the upcoming energy wise. Is it gimmicky? Basically what we're doing is we are looking out into the future energetically for energy shifts. So when I find one, like I found one on February 16th, that I think is going to be really profoundly shifting of energy, I'm going to do a video on that, right? So Y's in the road, Y's in the energy, so they kind of split or change. That's kind of the concept. What do you guys think? Put it in the show notes below and give me your comments, what you think. Hope to start that soon, and if I do, those videos should be out either late Sunday or early Monday. All right, but the Wednesday CIRF reports will continue. That's the main gig here. And this would be additive if I do that. All right, everybody. Have a blessed week. Cheers.